Welcome to the VOTU podcast. We at the Voices of the Underground, we're going to be talking about the incentives of the Steem blockchain, how they work now and how they could work in ways that would stimulate growth for the Steem network. I posted a few links that are kind of relevant to what we're talking about. Dan Larimer says that while Steem is still young, attracting new users is the most important thing. And I'm sure we can all agree we haven't quite reached world domination, right? So I think the Steem blockchain has to have their incentives in line with growth of the whole network. So what we're kind of going to be discussing is whether we actually think that it is, the incentives are there, or whether they need to be changed. So he said in that post at the top, people give Steem value by working together. The more everyone contributes, the larger the pie we share grows. The core idea is that everyone should get a slice of the pie proportional to their contribution. We must design systems that minimize the incentive to be selfish and give the honest individuals the power to police. Anyone playing by the rules has rightfully earned what they receive. The problem is the rules, not the people. I kind of get the impression that there was a vision for Steem in the beginning, right? And obviously Dan Larimer is no longer the head of the project. I think he felt that policing the system was necessary, but it was more important that the human element of selfishness, which is just natural, right? People are naturally selfish and it's not a bad thing. Rather than, force people not to be selfish, it'd be more like you have an incentive to not be selfish so that you actually profit from whatever it is you do for other people. So I think the major problem with this is that stakeholders have different kinds of incentives depending on what they value more, right? So whether it's capital gains or, say, quick cash. Dan might say that the incentives would be to share the wealth, because the more people you reward on the platform, the more users you attract to the platform, and they could be future investors. Increasing the demand for Steem means that those whales get a lot more money for their power dance. So, for example, somebody with 500,000 SP gains $5,000 every time the price of Steem goes up. But again, this is locked up in Steem power. So it really depends which way they look at it. Is it more important to get the money now, even if it's less? Or is it more important to save that money for later? Some people are savers and some people aren't. So not everybody cares about the future. Some people are short-sighted. You actually kind of have to accept or expect a lot of people to be short-sighted, because everybody in the world is in a different situation in their own lives, right? So you have people who might only have a few more years to live, or even a few more months to live. You can even have people who are depressed and just don't care about their future for that reason. There's actually tons of reasons that you might not care, but the most common one would just be the normal one, that's the future is just too far away. You have people who have rent to pay. You might have someone who has a mining farm with the electricity bills coming in every month or so. Money is needed on time for that, right? So I kind of think these things weren't exactly worked out on time. There's definitely, there's two incentives there, and there's two types of people, and that's what we're dealing with. I think Dan did take those things into consideration, but they didn't get implemented on the blockchain. He had a certain amount of things that he proposed that didn't go through. And one thing we have to remember as well is that this is really an experiment, all based on theory, on Dan's theory of how people are incentivized, or how people react to incentives, certain incentives. And we're kind of the fortunate guinea pigs in his little experiment, which is now Ned's experiment, obviously, and we're kind of lucky enough to be getting paid to take part in it. But what it is now, I don't think it was what it was set out to be. I feel like Dan came across the problems that we have now, which is mainly bots versus people, right? He wanted to make it more profitable for people than it is for bots. Because if it's more profitable for bots, then people will just choose bots, and they won't actually participate on the platform themselves as a human.
I think the fundamentals are really there. I think the problem is that we're used to this commodity-based economy and we come in with that view and we're so used to that. But I think we are seeing a change at the moment already, that people are starting to contribute more and be more generous with their stake. The trend of people delegating more just to individuals in the platform that are contributing. And I think we should educate each other about how the blockchain, the Steam blockchain works, like that it's more designed like a gift economy, and we should use that more. Like, for example, I started a gift circle just yesterday, which is a great way for people to learn how to think and how to use the Steam blockchain as it's designed to be used.
So you think like there is a certain way it should be used and the incentives are there. It's just that everybody has to kind of be on the same page about it, or everybody needs to sort of be educated on it or whatever. Do you think like there kind of needs to be a common understanding that there's, you know, we kind of have to understand the other perspectives as well?
I think we just need people to lead by example. Like, for example, Full-Time Geek is doing a great thing with his delegations, and also Stella Bell, I think. If we support those people that support the community, it will be obvious for people that it's the way to go here, that it's the way you get higher status and how you succeed here. So I think it will just be a little bit like a struggle now because we're used to this old thing, but people will learn gradually. And I think it can go pretty fast, actually.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, people do recognize people for doing good things. And I absolutely appreciate Full-Time Geek and Stella Bell for doing what they did. Stella Bell was actually doing it for a while, I think. I remember maybe a month or two ago, I met Paula. I met her in town in Dublin, and she was telling me she just woke up to a load of delegation from Stella Bell, and she was like really pleased with it. And it's just free, like. The incentive is there to do that if you want to grow the network. And everybody pretty much profits from that, right? If the rules are set so that everybody profits from other people's altruism, but there's still an incentive to be selfish, then the people who are selfish are not only profiting from their selfishness, they're also profiting from the other people's altruism. It's like the people who become more powerful in the end, the people who end up with more SP, like those people tend to be like the more selfish ones because they're really working out ways to pull in profits for themselves. If there's people who will act selfishly and still benefit from other people not acting selfishly, are the incentives really there?
I actually had an experience with my little baby Discord server. I had a person who, great work, always putting up a lot of interesting stuff, and had followers and everything, and would just like post in the upvote section, where I originally was like, I'm gonna upvote everybody, and I still want to do that, but it's like gets to the point where it's like, okay, this person is just leaving these links. And then I had a conversation with the person, and then they were like, well, I save all my upvotes basically for myself. And I was like, oh damn, okay. And then eventually they just left. But I feel like it definitely created a system where she is being very antisocial. She's doing well without us anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter to her. But at the same time, it's like, it kind of creates this void where the community aspect doesn't matter. If you can just get to a certain point and then start upvoting yourself, you don't have to vote anyone else. You don't have to go read anyone else's comments. You really don't have to accrue followers at all if you get to a certain point.
I assume it's a minnow, right?
Yeah, I think so, but up in the late 50s.
See, there's definitely different incentives. And this is one of the things I want to bring up about the bots, is that minnows have no reason to care about growing the network unless they already have a big stake. What the vote bidding bots are doing right now is it's giving minnows the power to just upvote whatever it is they want to, which is usually themselves, regardless of whether they added value or not. Obviously, value is subjective, but I mean, just because it's subjective doesn't mean it's arbitrary. You know, it's subject to people's opinions, people's perspectives, you know, whether somebody got value out of it. And it's not something a bot can really decide.